Eclipse of Moths is composed of 16 pictures that are all exteriors, working with themes of dislocation and brokenness, but also some possibility of hope or redemption. Usually we're in each location for 2 days, and we art design or whatever we might need in an effort to create one perfect moment. Reality recedes, and then there's this beautiful kind of still image that you can actually see on set. And that's the moment I really live for, because it's like when the whole world makes sense.
Hi there, my name is Malcolm Gladwell. I am here because I am the host of a conversation between Gregory Crewdson and Jeff Tweedy of Wilco. Can we start?
Yes.
We can actually start?
We're ready to go.
All right. My thought was that these pictures read a certain way in 2020 that they would not have read in 1995. Do you think that's true? Was that just a happy coincidence, if so?
It's an unhappy
or an unhappy
coincidence.
coincidence.
Well, yeah, I made these pictures like at least a few years ago, and I could have never imagined that they would enter into the world that they now have entered into. It's a very strange time, Jeff, I'm sure you would agree, to, be an artist and have your work go out into the world. I think art in general is a way of establishing order in a chaotic life, even when that's almost impossible task.
You just have to make things that are beautiful and real enough to you, and then have faith that our meaning-seeking minds, if you've given somebody something rich enough, will find some meaning, some comfort. And art, I think, in general, is always going to be one of the places I look for a feeling of connection and warmth from my fellow man.
Why is it that in some of these photographs, even the facial features of some of the people in them are indistinct. They're so far in the distance, and yet you have an incredible amount of sympathy for their situation.
Well, the entire series, definitely a theme that runs through all the pictures, is the relationship between the lone figures and the vast landscape. And so that was something I really wanted to work with, and that's why the prints are the size they are, to make that as kind of grand and expressive as possible.
How large are the prints?
They're 4 by 8 feet. And these lone figures wandering through this broken landscape is really central to the work. And even the title, An Eclipse of Moths, is from an actual term which describes moths being drawn to light sources. And one of the central motifs in the work is the street light, and how these figures are kind of gravitate towards these to find some connection, some sense of possibility. And to me, the possibility comes from the form, the beauty of the light.
Mm-hmm. Jeff, you wrote a song, right, inspired by this show.
Mm-hmm.
Can you talk a little bit about that?
I record music all the time, and when Gregory asked if I had anything that might be appropriate, I immediately thought of this piece that was written the day that my wife had her last chemotherapy session, and it seemed to have a lot of latitude or landscape, or it had a horizontal shape. It's basically kind of like the skylines or the mountains, the Berkshires, or the way a lot of the skies look in these photos. And then after Gregory thought that piece worked with his photos, and went back and added a coda using the same chords and some of the same pieces, more relating to the feeling after the photos were off the screen. It was more relating to the feeling of having seen the photos.
Gregory, can you, first of all, is this the first piece of music that has been affiliated with your own work?
Yeah, I was so thrilled and honored when Jeff agreed to do it. And then when we played the track up against the pictures, I got very emotional. And, all photographs are silent. It's part of the limitations of the medium. So when there was an actual score, I was like, wow, this is really adds something.
Music has to move through time. That is one of the, I don't know, the ways that the two forms we work in are almost, couldn't be more different in that regard, at least temporally.
I listened to that piece of music and loved it. And my thought was that it reinforced the notion, and feel free, either of you, to shoot this down. This reaction I had about when I saw the images in this collection for the first time, that there's something deeply spiritual in them, and in a very specific way, which is, something New Testament about them. Someone grew up in a very religious household. There's a spiritual art vernacular in kind of early 20th century, you would see in the Bible, Jesus casting his light on someone. That's what I thought about. And then when I heard the music, seemed like it was the hymn playing in the background to the. Am I losing my mind? But this was my kind of. Is this an over elaborate reaction? But there's something celestial about these photographs.
I mean, that's a great reading of it, and I'm all for it. How about you, Jeff?
I can get with it. I think there are some sustained chordal elements that are very organ-like, but they're not quite organ sounding. They're manipulated electric guitars, which is sort of the modern Christ vernacular, I would say. If you
That's nicely put.
I'm just going to take your idea and totally confirm it. But yeah, that song is it's not really a song. It's more of an atmosphere written in response to a tentative release of tension. That's the way that music feels to me, and that's the way a lot of the photos feel to me. Like something just happened, and the adrenaline is still going, but it's serene somehow.
Are you ready?
Yeah, we're ready.
Okay. There's so much loneliness and so much want. It's kind of like this sort of connection between, or this intersection between Tennessee Williams and John Cheever. You can feel the sense of loss in these people just because there's so much distance to be covered here. I mean, there's literal distance, but you can also feel the psychological distance. I mean, just this powerful, dislocating, primal loss and want. I think about these frames, and you go back to Dorothea Lange or Gordon Parks or any of the people who shot during the Depression, and there were much more intimate frames, and to convey this intimacy in what is in effect CinemaScope, these big pictures. And it's funny too because there's almost something painterly about the way the lights fall, the reflection of these headlights. in the slick. There's a slight hit of light everywhere that of course makes you think of Edward Hopper. You feel like a brush stroke in the middle of this huge photograph. This isn't, strictly speaking, a narrative, but there's this space that almost feels like the flicker between movie frames, but also where part of the story is for us to fill in. And clearly there's purpose and intent in the way the photos are aligned and hanged, obviously. That takes us, we go that way to Redemption Center. And a crying need for some kind of redemption. I mean, I cannot think of an exhibition of his work that fits better in this time than an Eclipse of Moths. I really cannot, because I feel like there is hunger to make contact that's more prevalent in this work than ever before. I'm fascinated by how many of these pictures have camera subjects wearing no shoes. So nobody's going anywhere. You get that. Where are you gonna go? You don't have any shoes. It's fascinating too is how healthy all the foliage looks. It looks verdant and green. But everything else, everything is man-made, is in such a state of disrepair. And nature's saying, no, we're still here. It's like walking around in this place a few weeks after the COVID emergencies have been declared, and you saw coyotes wandering around in Griffith Park right off Sunset Boulevard. Gosh, it makes me think so much of what the world is like now and this country is like now, with so many people are living lives not that much different from this. I mean, there's something really painful about the lack of connection in these, and the need for that, and the want for that. We get a little bit of that here. I mean, look at the distance, but still, there's something slightly unreadable about all this, that of course, which is what his work is all about. Yeah, the emotional element for me is there's so much abandonment of items, of articles, people leaving things behind. I almost find myself thinking about who left this stuff, which is, I think, the kind of question that Gregory wants us to ask. Who left these things behind? And having left them so long that they've been grown over. It feels almost like this bicycle is being consumed by the grass or whatever this vegetation here. The focus is so sharp and there's so much detail that you can find yourself just wandering and looking at every inch of the photograph. I mean, you want to step back a little bit just to get the full sense of the power of the image, and it's really extraordinary. But then we want to get close too so we can read the details. I mean, who's driving the bus, but also walk into the frame and see Melville Street, name your Melville, or read the sign, Dalton Avenue Variety, most everything for everybody. There's so much clarity and ambiguity in these pictures at the same time that you can't help but feel like you're getting overwhelmed with information and emotional content, yet there's still something for us to fill in. These pictures, more than any others of his, feel at that moment just before you wake up from a dream, the last image from a dream. You can almost recount all of it. You have to draw it, you could put it down on a piece of paper. You could describe it to somebody in voluminous detail. And these pictures have that. But also that sort of sense of dissociation. And that's what the world feels like now.